Part 1. The House of Screams, August 1944. Introduction: the most dangerous address in Paris. Paris, 1944. The City of Light has been occupied for 4 years. While the citizens starve and the resistance fights in the shadows, there is one address where the lights never go out, the champagne never stops flowing, and the screaming never ends. 93 Rue Lauriston. From the outside, it is an elegant bourgeois mansion in the prestigious 16th arrondissement, a place for bankers or diplomats. But inside, it is the headquarters of the Carlingue, the French Gestapo. This building is a schizophrenic nightmare. On the upper floors, there are lavish parties. Actresses, fashion designers, and German officers drink vintage wine and dance to jazz. In the basement, soundproofed cells reek of blood and fear. Here, Frenchmen torture other Frenchmen with a brutality that shocked even the German SS. The man running this house of horrors is not a soldier. He is not a politician. He is a career criminal who found the perfect job. Henri Lafont, the security chief of the Parisian underworld. For 4 years, he has been the untouchable king of Paris. He drives a white Bentley. He wears the finest suits. He has the power of life and death over anyone in the city. But it is August 17, 1944. The Americans are approaching. The rumble of Leclerc's tanks can be heard in the suburbs. The party is over. The bill is due. And at 93 Rue Lauriston, the panic is setting in. Title card: The Gangster of the Gestapo. Chapter 1. The Criminal King, Henri Lafont. To understand the chaos of the final hours, you have to understand who Henri Lafont was. Before the war, he was a nobody, a petty thief named Henri Chamberlain, drifting in and out of prisons for stealing cars and passing bad checks. He was uneducated, illiterate, but possessed a feral, charismatic charm. When the Nazis arrived in 1940, they didn't just need soldiers, they needed people who knew the streets. They needed thugs who could do the dirty work that the Wehrmacht soldiers found distasteful. Lafont walked into the German headquarters and made them an offer. "Give me a badge and I will catch your enemies." The Nazis accepted. They gave an illiterate criminal the rank of SS Hauptsturmführer. They gave him a blank check. Lafont recruited his friends from the prisons, murderers, pimps, bank robbers. He gave them Gestapo ID cards. Suddenly, the criminal underworld was the police. "I am the king of Paris," Lafont boasted, and he was. He looted Jewish homes, stole millions in gold, and eliminated anyone who crossed him. But his right hand was the real brain, Pierre Bonny, a disgraced former police inspector, famous for his corruption. Bonny provided the intellect. Lafont provided the violence. Together, they turned 93 Rue Lauriston into a machine of terror and profit. Chapter 2. The Fire in the Courtyard. August 17, 1944. The atmosphere inside the mansion is electric with fear. The German protectors are packing. The Wehrmacht is burning its own documents across the city. Lafont stands in his office, looking out the window. He is wearing a German uniform, but he knows it won't protect him anymore. Pierre Bonny enters. He is pale, sweating. He knows the law. He knows what happens to traitors. "We have to go, Henri," Bonny says. "The resistance is rising. They will hang us from the lampposts." Lafont is in denial. He thinks his money can save him. He has amassed a fortune, diamonds, gold bars, stacks of francs. But Bonny insists, "The files, we must destroy the files." And so the final cleanup begins. In the courtyard of 93 Rue Lauriston, a massive bonfire is lit. Into the flames go the lists of informers, the interrogation transcripts, the photos of resistance members they tortured. It is a scene of frantic destruction. The thugs of the Carlingue, men who usually walk with a swagger, are now running back and forth with armfuls of paper. Ash floats over the neighborhood. settling on the balconies of the neighbors who have listened to the screams for 4 years and are now watching the smoke with grim satisfaction. Chapter 3: The Basement of Horrors. While the fire burns upstairs, there is still unfinished business downstairs. The cells are not empty. There are prisoners in the basement, resistance fighters, British agents, Jews. Lafont has a choice: release them or finish the job. For men like Lafont, mercy is a weakness. In these final hours, the brutality does not stop, it accelerates. Some prisoners are dragged out and shot in the Bois de Boulogne. Others are loaded onto the last transport trains heading to Buchenwald. Lafont walks through the basement one last time. He inspects the hooks on the ceiling, the bathtubs used for waterboarding. He feels no remorse. To him, this was just a business, and the basement was his office. Chapter 4: The Last Convoy. August 18, 1944. Noon. A convoy of black Citroën Traction Avans lines up in front of the mansion. These are the famous cars of the French Gestapo, fast, menacing, synonymous with terror. Lafont comes out. He is carrying suitcases. They are heavy. They are filled with not clothes, but gold coins and jewelry. He is followed by his mistress, his lieutenants, and Pierre Bonny. They look like a funeral procession for the devil. They are not heading to Germany. The Germans have refused to take them. To the Nazis, these French criminals were useful idiots, tools to be discarded when broken. They are on their own. Lafont decides to head to his country estate, a farm called Bazoches-sur-le-Betz, about 100 kilometers south of Paris. Ideally, they want to hide there, wait for the chaos to settle, and then escape to Spain. As the cars pull away from 93 Rue Lauriston, Lafont looks back at his palace. The neighbors are watching from behind curtains. The moment the cars turn the corner, the spell breaks. The House of Screams is silent. But the hunt is just beginning. The French forces of the interior know who they are. They know where they are going. Lafont thinks he is escaping to safety. In reality, he is driving into a trap. Transition to Part 2. The King of Paris is now a fugitive. Lafont and Bonny arrive at the farm in Bazoches. They are surrounded by their loot, their women, and a small army of heavily armed thugs. They settle in, opening bottles of stolen champagne, trying to pretend that they are still in control. But the countryside is rising against them. The local resistance has spotted the black Citroën. In the next part, we will cover the siege of the farm, the desperate shootout, the betrayal, and the moment the most feared men in France found themselves looking down the barrel of a gun. Part 2. The Siege and the Judgment. August 30, December 1944. Chapter 5. The Golden Cage. Bazoches-sur-le-Betz. Imagine the scene. While Paris is exploding with the joy of liberation, while de Gaulle is marching down the Champs-Élysées, a group of heavily armed criminals is holed up in a rustic farmhouse 100 kilometers away. Bazoches-sur-le-Betz. This was Lafont's country retreat. For 10 days, the leaders of the French Gestapo lived here in a bizarre limbo. The house was packed with loot. Suitcases overflowed with gold coins, pearls, and bundles of cash. Henri Lafont, ever the showman, tried to keep morale up. He opened bottles of 1928 champagne. He boasted that his connections would save them. He believed he could bribe the resistance, just as he had bribed everyone else. But in the corner of the room sat Pierre Bonny. The ex-cop was dying. His liver was failing. He was yellow, gaunt, and terrified. He knew the game was up. He knew that their friends in the German intelligence service had abandoned them, and he knew there was a traitor among them. Chapter 6. The Betrayal of the Ragman. The Carlingue didn't fall because of a brilliant military operation. It fell because of a betrayal. Enter Joseph Jonovici. Jonovici was a Jewish scrap metal dealer born in Bessarabia. During the war, he became a billionaire by selling metal to the Nazis while secretly funding the resistance. He was a master manipulator, playing both sides. He was Lafont's closest business partner. But in August 1944, Jonovici needed to clean his record. He needed a trophy to give to the new French government. And what better trophy than the head of the French Gestapo? Jonovici went to the police. He gave them the address, Bazoches. On the morning of August 30, 1944, the silence of the countryside was shattered. Trucks carrying Inspector Moran and a heavily armed platoon of the FFI surrounded the farm. Chapter 7. The Arrest. Lafont had a small army with him. They had machine guns. They could have fought a bloody battle. But when the police shouted for them to surrender, Lafont walked out the front door. He was wearing a perfectly tailored suit. He was smoking a cigarette. "Gentlemen," he said with a smile, "there is no need for noise." Why did he surrender? Because he was arrogant. He truly believed he was too rich to be killed. He thought this was just another negotiation. The police searched the farm. What they found stunned them. Millions of francs, kilos of gold, piles of jewelry stolen from deportation victims, and in the garage, the white Bentley and the black Citroëns. Lafont and Bonny were handcuffed. They were driven back to Paris, but this time, they didn't go to Rue Lauriston. They were taken to the Conciergerie, the ancient prison where Marie Antoinette had waited for the guillotine. The irony was perfect. The kings of Paris were now in the dungeon of kings. Chapter 8. The Trial of the Century. December 1st, 1944, the trial begins. It is the first major trial of the purge, l'épuration. The courtroom is packed. The press calls them the monsters. But the two men in the dock couldn't be more different. Pierre Bonny is a wreck. He is carried into the courtroom on a stretcher. He is dying of cancer. He whines, he cries, he tries to blame everything on Lafont. He is a pathetic figure stripped of his power. Henri Lafont, on the other hand, puts on a show. He stands tall, he mocks the judge, he winks at the audience. When the prosecutor lists his crimes, torture, murder, banditry, Lafont interrupts him. "I did not kill enough. If I had killed more, I wouldn't be here." He delivers one of the most cynical speeches in the history of criminal justice. Looking at the judge, he says, "I was a criminal before the war. The Germans gave me a badge. I did what I always did. Why are you surprised?" And then, looking at the rows of French officials in the courtroom, he drops a bombshell. "Look at you. Half of you were begging me for favors last month. I should have kept the receipts." Lafont claims to be a patriot in his own twisted way. He argues that by working for the Gestapo, he navigated the ship between the rocks. Nobody buys it. The testimony of the victims is harrowing. Survivors of Rue Lauriston describe the bathtub tortures, the beatings, the screams. The verdict is inevitable. December 11th, 1944. The judge reads the sentence. Lafont, death. Bonny, death. And with them, death sentences for their top lieutenants, including the famous footballer turned torturer Alexandre Villaplan. Lafont listens to the sentence with a smirk. "Well," he says to his lawyer, "it seems the party is finally over." Transition to Part 3. The kings of the underworld have 15 days left to live. They are moved to the death row cells at Friends Prison. In these final days, the dynamic shifts. Bonny writes desperate letters, trying to buy his life with secrets. Lafont, on the other hand, prepares for his grand finale. He wants to die as a legend. In the next part, we will witness the execution at Fort de Montjoie, the moment when the gangster faced the firing squad with a cigarette in his mouth and the final insult on his lips. Part 3. The Devil's Christmas. December 26, 1944. Chapter 9. The Morning After Christmas. December 26, 1944. Boxing Day. While Paris was waking up from its first liberated Christmas in 4 years, a grim procession was forming in the courtyard of Friends' prison. It was cold. The sky was gray. A thin layer of frost covered the ground. At 8 a.m., the cell doors opened. Lafont, Bonny, it is time. The contrast between the two men was shocking. Pierre Bonny, the once feared policeman who knew everyone's secrets, was a broken man. His liver disease had ravaged him. He could barely stand. He had to be supported by guards, weeping, trembling, a shadow of the man who terrorized the resistance. Henri Lafont, however, treated his execution like a final premiere. He dressed impeccably. He wore a white shirt, a sharp suit, and a fedora. When the lawyer offered him a glass of rum, a tradition for the condemned, he accepted it with a smile. "It's a pity," he reportedly said. "I was just getting used to the quiet life." He looked at the weeping Bonny with contempt. To Lafont, Bonny was breaking the gangster code. You live by the gun, you die by the gun. You don't cry about it. Chapter 10. Fort de Montrouge. The convoy of police vans drove through the silent streets of Paris to the Fort de Montrouge. This 19th-century fortress was the traditional place for executing traitors. 12 stakes were driven into the ground against the high stone wall. Lafont, Bonny, and 6 of his lieutenants, including Villeplain, the former captain of the French national football team, were marched to the posts. The firing squad consisted of young French soldiers. Some of them were FFI members, resistance fighters who had hunted these men for years. Now they held the rifles. Bonny collapsed. He had to be tied to his post to keep him upright. He was murmuring, begging, his eyes shut tight against the horror. Lafont walked to his post casually. He declined the priest. An officer approached with a blindfold. He waved him away. "I don't need that," he sneered. "I want to see the view." He stood relaxed, smoking a final cigarette. He chatted with his lawyer until the very last second. According to legend, he adjusted his scarf and shouted to the firing squad, "Don't aim for the face, boys. I want to look good in the coffin." 9:10 a.m. The order was given. "Jew, fire!" A volley of shots rang out, echoing off the fortress walls. Henri Lafont jerked back as the bullet struck his chest. He slumped against the ropes. Pierre Bonny went limp. The Carlingue was dead. The officer in charge walked up to each body for the coup de grace, a final pistol shot to the temple to ensure death. The king of the Paris underworld ended up as a corpse in the mud just months after drinking champagne with Nazi generals. Epilogue: The Ghosts of Paris. What happened to the rest? Joseph Joanovici, the billionaire scrap dealer who betrayed them, didn't get his happy ending. The French government took his trophy, but didn't forgive him. He was arrested, tried for collaboration, and died in poverty in 1965. The loot, much of the gold and jewelry stolen by the French Gestapo, was never recovered. Some say Lafont buried a fortune on his farm in Bazoches before he surrendered. Treasure hunters have looked for years, but the earth has kept its secrets. 93 Rue Lauriston, today. If you go to Paris today, walk to the prestigious 16th arrondissement. Find number 93 on Rue Lauriston. It is an elegant building. There are offices inside. People work there, typing on computers, drinking coffee. But on the facade, there is a stone plaque. Passers-by rarely stop to read it. It says, "Here, from 1940 to 1944, the French Gestapo tortured patriots for the enemy." The soundproofed cells in the basement are gone.
renovated into storage rooms, but locals say the building has a heavy atmosphere. It remains a scar on the face of Paris, a reminder that the worst monsters of the occupation were not the Germans in gray uniforms, but the Frenchmen in expensive suits who sold their souls for power and gold. Henri Lafont was a petty thief who became a king for 4 years. He proved a terrifying truth. In times of chaos, the line between a criminal and a policeman doesn't just blur, it disappears.